Hey everybody, hope you had a great trading day. It was a wild one to say the least. We're going to cover the indexes, so stay to the end. But I do want to go through this. It was in the top 10 on Saturday. If you have not watched that top 10 list, I'll link it at the end. There's still some pretty key levels in there. This 287.47 was the level we were watching today. Let's just bring this straight across so you can see how that just cuts pretty much perfectly, right throughout the entire chart. As you're trying to roll here, this is what we were looking for this morning in the public pre-market call, where we were saying that, it looks like you're probably going to gap up and then you're going to have to see if you can envelop this bar. Because if you do envelop that bar, then what's going to happen, now you have this bearish engulfing pattern right here with a declining RSI. And then you can see these little peaks right here. So that's like a very pretty head and shoulders. Again, we reviewed all this on Saturday. So this was your neckline break. At least this is how I kind of looked at the world from my perspective. And you got up to that level and then you pulled back. And then this is what you were dealing with all day long. So all day long, and what it's been like is just incessant selling. Now, if you go and click and just look at VWAP, I find this really interesting because it's been a long time since you've seen this, where you just have days upon days where you can't get above anchored VWAP. You had one day when you did. Other than that, it's just days and days of selling. So watch the anchored VWAP on this tomorrow. See if you get above that. You did have some kind of buying at the end of today. You are back over on your RSI, so maybe it pops up, but overall, this looks extremely weak, and I would look for any rallies back to that 287.87 level. I would look at that as a possible spot to put a short on. Now, if you go back and just take a look at this on a 30-minute chart, let me just pull that up real quick here, and you just kind of look at that particular level that we're just talking about, okay? You can see all the bonking, bonk, 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 right? Like, watch that level very, very closely tomorrow. I don't really see any type of support until you get to about 264. That's really what I'm looking for. And I'm not even so sure that, that's going to hold. You do have a level with the 50-day that you just need to be aware of that's sitting right in there. That would get you to 268. At this point, I don't know how you don't test that level. Now, Chewy had earnings this evening and they missed. The stock closed at 37.39. Take a look here. You're down about another 10%. Watch that 31.27 level. You started to find some support there. You're trying right down here this way, but they missed on revenue. So at the time of filming this, we're still getting data coming out, but you can see right here, 2.43 versus 2.48. And since we've seen that, the stock is just completely sold off, another 10% down. Usually how these play out in the morning is you see a rally up, right? And you get that little arc, and then maybe you fill and then roll later, either in that day or a day later. If you trade up tomorrow, that's where I would be looking at possibly putting the short on, not when you're down 10%. You kind of have to watch that in this market because we're getting really oversold, as we're going to get to in the indexes in a moment. But, we did break some key levels today, which we absolutely have to address. But you want to see them trade up and then roll. That's really what you're looking for. But anything that's missing earnings in this kind of environment is just going to be absolutely trashed. People are just going to get rid of the company. Now, on a positive note, Crowd actually had a really good quarter here. You can see without the pre and the post data, here's your downward trend line. And you've been bouncing through this, and you have an upward trending 50-day moving average. I mean, this has really been the sweet spot of the market, software. If you take a look at the software names, they've had the biggest moves. They haven't held them that great, but you can see Snow hanging in there. We saw Net trade all the way up and then come back down, filling in that gap. But these 50s are still pointing up on that whole space. So if I had to pick an area in tech that actually, it's like picking, the least ugly sector, it really is software. Like, the earnings are beating. So, and this was no exception. So 36 cents versus 27 cents, 535 million versus 515 million. Okay, now you're seeing next quarter, they're adjusting up 30 cents to 32, and you're raising revenue in the middle of what we're dealing with. It's impressive. You're taking your entire year guidance up from 130 to 133 from 120. and you're taking your sales up to about 2.23 from 2.22. So you're going to do some cost cutting there, but the revenue side is great. Now, if you just take a look at this bar, just see how you act here going into the conference call. Again, this was filmed before then. One of the things we like to do in the trading room is I like to watch these ranges, and I like to see how they act on these ranges. Now, this one is just wicked, with a 10-point range. And again, we're going to get into the indexes here in 1 second, but you can see how you're bouncing along here, right? And then you can just kind of see, maybe you just want to hold off yet before doing anything. Maybe see how we open tomorrow. We are at those key levels. You are on a downward trend line. I would, if I was short this, I certainly would want to cover it. If I was long, I'm not so sure what I would do considering the underlying market. But it's definitely going to be on my radar for one to watch today. But lately you just have to kind of keep your head on the swivel. I want to walk through this NVIDIA trade because we've been talking about it for some time. Again, if you were watching the top 10 on Saturday, and we've gone over it, I believe, this week again as well. But if you look at these levels, when you start breaking these 50 days, and you start doing that on all those sectors, you really need to take a look at it, okay? So when you start breaking just absolutely across the board, when all these names start breaking, all your leaders in one sector start breaking their 50-day moving average, you really need to pay attention to that, okay? And when you see that, it means that the underlying index is in jeopardy. Now, we all know the SOX is the underlying index, right? So when that closed here, okay, on the 26th, that's not what you wanted to see because you're closing below anchored VWAP, on the low of anchored VWAP. And again, I like using anchored VWAPs on peaks and valleys the most, just not randomly. You can VWAP all over yourself if you keep putting them all over the chart. But you broke that 50 on the SOX and you broke this ahead of time. This was pretty clear that that was going to be a level, and I'm going to show you how this relates to the NASDAQ because this is a leading indicator of where the NASDAQ's heading, right? It's been leading us all year long. So I'm not suggesting we're coming back down to this level. Nobody knows that, but this certainly does not look great. One of the trades that we had in the trading room was this today. And essentially what we were doing was just watching the action off the open, and then you could just see the sale off the open, and then you just saw us rally, and then that was it. Once you got through this level right here, this 44.78, it was risk on. And then we just kept moving the stop up. And you can see the break right here, 45.20 up, right? Now, this was the area that I would suggest that you want to see it get through before you do anything. This was the area that we were talking about selling it at today. If you got up to here, we were off by about, 20 cents or something. So I thought you might get to the 50. Best case scenario, you did. You backed off. There is some resistance in here, but you really need to watch the SOX tomorrow because if the SOX breaks, as goes the NASDAQ, but watch that level, that 48.53 tomorrow. But take a look at this after hours. And I'm going to put after hours in just so you can see it with the VWAP. Get rid of this 50. And we're going to leave all these lines in. Now, here you are. And let's just throw this after hours in as well. So I just want to put this in so you can see pre-market, you were below the whole day. Here's the SOX at the end of the day, trying to hold on and kind of breaking through here. So you're going to want to watch this tomorrow and see what kind of rejection you get. You kind of have like a wonky bear flag in there. And so what I'm saying is, this is what happens. We go through cycles where everybody thinks doom and gloom, which we're obviously going through right now, right? Without not holding any support levels as we're going to address. But what we want to see is you want to see things set up a little bit just before you go hog wild. And so, on this one, if you took it, great. If you didn't, you didn't. But what you want to do is you just want to set up for the next trade. Maybe you form a flag before you're going higher, right? That's what you have to look at. So you want to just pay attention to that. You want to pay attention to the SOX tomorrow, how you're breaking. All those leading stocks, what I just showed you how to do, you can do in any index. But you can see how that links you right to here, right? And these are all the levels that we had today, all 100 levels. Let's get rid of them all. And this is my biggest concern. Anchored VWAP to the low. You held it for today. You broke below the 50 on the Qs. I'm not really crazy about that. And get rid of this blue line because we really don't need that, do we? So I'm not really crazy about that. And that's an issue. And then I have a bearish engulfing when it did it. This is a really bearish pattern. My hope is that you hold in here and maybe go sideways, But at best, all that's going to do is give me a bear flag under a minor DTL, right? Downward trend line. That's not really going to make me feel warm and fuzzy. So again, I would be selling into rallies. And the only benefit that I saw today was there was no place to hide. They even went and took out energy names. So that's a good sign because it means that the breadth of the sell-off is increasing. And that's what you want to see, right? When the breadth of the sell-off increases, you're in better shape. Same soup reheated at the SPY, right? Broke the 50, came right down to the anchored VWAP down here, and then bounced off of that. Same DTL, same kind of bear flag pattern, right? Like even if you're up, I mean, here, let's just take off this pre and post. Even if you're up, where are you going, right? Like you have a lot of work to do. And since that sell-off, this doji, as we talked about in yesterday's video, you can see how all these daily videos link together. When you broke, that was it. It was a wrap. So keep that in mind. That is not something that you want to be playing with. These are really nasty. The best looking one is just IWM, just hanging in there. If I had to find something positive that I saw today, I would just tell you this on the VIX. At least we didn't make a higher high. I mean, that's not really the be all end all, but at least we didn't make a higher high. So we went over a lot. I hope you found it helpful. For those asking, the trading room is open for 2 more days, and then we will close it for an undetermined period of time. The link to preview it is up here in the top right. Everybody, have a great evening and trade to win tomorrow.